John War here, and today we've got a Rating Your Doomstack video playing as the Maggot host. We've got Temerkan, the Maggot Lord here, with 15 Toad Dragons. He's of course on a Toad Dragon himself, so technically we've got 16 Toad Dragons and a few heroes here, all of which have a very definitive purpose for the army. We're going up against Ironbrow's Expedition, and they are bringing 3 full stacks, tiny little bit damaged, of mostly endgame units. And the auto resolve gives us a Pyrrhic victory despite maximum battle difficulty. So this here, if nothing else, it's very strong in auto resolve. He's got the Nemesis crown, so that's providing to the Toad Dragons weapon strength plus 25 and a bunch of bonuses on Temerkan himself. He's also got the Sword of Cain on Temerkan, so basically turning Temerkan into a one-man Doomstack on top of it. But we're here to test out the Toad Dragons. I can appreciate how strong he's made Temerkan, but considering that the battle doesn't look particularly difficult, I think when we go in here, I might hold Temerkan back because he might carry them too heavily. So let's jump into the battle and see how it performs. Because yeah, that's the thing with these rating Doomstack videos. It's not about tryharding the battle, not unless the army is particularly difficult to use and requires tryharding. Toad Dragons, like single entity big monsters like this, usually it's just about constantly charging them through. And the amount of force that we're dealing with here, I kind of feel confident that these guys can handle it, especially considering we've got a Nurgle hero caster here that's able to just heal them. And we'll probably be able to heal beyond what was the original heal cap as well. So the cultist is there primarily for campaign movement range. The guy in the email said that this army here moves like crazy over the campaign map, that's great for sure. But yeah, we want to test out the Toad Dragons, and so we need to give them an appropriate amount of challenge. Because this is a super late game army. It wouldn't be something you can quickly get, especially considering the Sword of Cain and the Nemesis crown. So I'm primarily going to use the Toad Dragons. I get the Temerkan, he's got to put a lot of effort into this, but I know I've got a one-man Doomstack Temerkan submission in my inbox that I'm due to cover very soon. So we'll get to him eventually. And I feel like if I send him in with the army, he is just going to do too much of the work. And what we want to do here is rate the actual Toad Dragons. Overall, I think he's done basically a perfect job of making this army. But like I said, the rating is on the Toad Dragons. Because everyone else here is support, except for Temerkan, I guess. I mean, he provides a lot of bonuses in his skill tree, which we'll have a look at afterwards. So same thing with Kargan the Crazed. He's doing some stuff to boost their stats. Same thing with Kazak. This guy here, campaign movement range, and this guy is healing. Now, let's see how they perform if we just use this here. Because obviously, if we use everything and try harder, the battle will be insanely easy. And honestly, I think if we just use the Toad Dragons, it'll still be fairly easy. That being said, they do have a lot of anti-large missile units, so we do need to micro these guys just a little bit and make sure we pin down their missile units. Now, we've got 72 speed, we've got 30% missile resistance, 10% ward save, ridiculous amounts of weapon strength, largely due to the Nemesis crown. I really don't think you should have picked up the Sword of Cain, because while it does make Temerkan stronger, you're not doing a one-man Doomstack submission here, and if you're playing on Legendary difficulty, you will have a lot of suffering because of the public order problems. So I'm not super fond of it for this particular situation. Anyway, let's jump in and see how it goes. So we're just going to move up here and wait for them to bring in their reinforcements. Give them as much of an advantage as we possibly can. Now we've also got the Unspeakable Foulness, and I personally think that I shouldn't use it in this situation because what ends up happening, if we come up over here and use breath attacks, it takes a little while to use. This is a bit of a slow move, and while that's going on, the enemy are just going to keep shooting at you, and what we really want to do is pin down all their missile units, especially considering we're outnumbered more than 2 to 1 because we're, not using a quarter of our army essentially. So if you're sitting there thinking, why isn't he using Unspeakable Foulness? It's because it's much better to pin these guys down so we don't take as much damage, rather than use these breath attacks, which do a lot of damage, but will also suffer a lot of damage in return. Best time to use Unspeakable Foulness is really when you're going up against an enemy that can't shoot back at you very well. Which is not the case here. There's a lot of artillery. So let them get organized. Obviously, under normal circumstances, you wouldn't wait for the enemy reinforcements to come in like this. But that's the whole point of a rating your doom stack. We got to put it to the test. How much can it handle? You know, if they cheese the battle too hard, we're not really putting it to the test. Because we know we're going to win, right? But how much are we going to win by? That's the big question here. So sometimes there's submissions that get sent in, and I'm not even sure I can win the battle, so I have to try hard. But this is not one of those cases. I know these guys can win. Okay, we just got to watch out for the obstruction here by charging in. Some guys could get obstructed there if we just charge them in like that. Try to get them in a line so that the one at the front doesn't take all the bloody artillery damage. And they seem ready. Let's go. And what we want to be doing is maybe zigzagging a little bit. Although these guys, their turning radius isn't that great. And they're big and fat, so they're probably not great for dodging shots. Yeah, not really. First thing we want to do is pin down all of their high damage missile units. I'm not too concerned about the anti-large infantry. If we can pin down all their missile units, get rid of them quickly, and then blob up, all of their melee infantry will be very easy to deal with. So for some reason, when you're charging, the AI is still like, oh, we better reform again. So this is pretty common for the AI. You know, I gave them plenty of time to set up, and they're like, oh, better reform again. And this is the whole reason why you don't use the unspeakable foulness in this situation, because you don't want to give them that chance to get set up with their artillery. And you can replicate doing this in every battle, you know, just don't give them the opportunity to shoot. So there's things like gyro bombers, can't really do anything about them. We should try to pin down thunderers. So I'll use the army abilities that are over here, but not these two, because they're unique to Temercon. This one here got a little bit stuck in there. These guys here have a huge amount of damage that they do in the charge, like just shitloads of splash damage, so you want to be charging them as often as possible, but at the same time, we really want to be pinning down missile units. Don't worry about that one so much. Low on ammo, we'll just use it up. So Iron Drake's troll hammer torpedoes, we do not want them shooting. Definitely a derpy unit. And they're not super responsive. I mean, something of this size you wouldn't expect it to be. So looking at some of the damage we've dished out so far, it's okay. You know, I'm not looking at ridiculous numbers here. Alright, now let's take out one of these guys from the army and use an unspeakable foulness. And you'll see that it's not essential to use, considering how much damage has already been done. I think a lot of damage is being inflicted from collision, from just being tossed around, which is not actually being calculated in these situations here. So try not to get any friendly fire. Aim for something that's not in combat. It does some damage, but it's hardly essential. Main thing here, pin them down, make sure they don't shoot back. And they're all unbreakable as well. So that's good. Okay, you definitely want to pin this one down. Alright, let's bring in the Nurgle caster. And let's get a heal going. Because obviously that's what this guy is here for. You know, any faction that can make a single entity Doomstack, if you can get a healer, you absolutely should. So any faction that's got access to Lore of Vampires, Lore of Life, Lore of Nurgle, you want to get those heals in. What about Lore of High Magic? Well, any faction that has access to High Magic also has Life. You're better off with Life. Now, if we want to get the most out of this heal, we want to get everyone in on one spot. Which does mean we're no longer pinning units down. But we're about to get a massive heal on everyone. You just need it there for the activation, because the spell goes on for a while. You definitely want to overcast it. And then they can go back out. They don't have to stay within the circle. That spell, that heals them for like 50% of their health. How much damage has that Gyro Bomber done anyway? Quite a lot actually. It's essentially nearly killed one because they've got 12,000 health. It's done a lot. Hasn't even used up that much of its ammo. But we just heal whatever damage is done. So yeah, the Gyro Bombers is something that... Actually, we can do something about them. We'll use Rancid Visitation. I'll need a lot of them, but I've got heaps of magic, and I reckon the army losses aren't too far off. Actually, you know what? No, we're fine. We're fine. Don't worry about it. It's fine. Let it keep dishing out damage. Obviously, if we had used these heroes, the battle would be even easier. Not even at our max heals yet, so when the battle's over, we'll be able to continue their heals. That's not a problem. Still a fair number of reinforcements to come in. Ooh, that was pretty damaging. Actually get away from them. Draw them in a bit further. Yeah, their turner. Okay, that one's getting close with max heals. Okay, that wasn't the one that was doing all the damage. I think it was the Thunderers. Yeah, it was, because it was just one shot. So they're definitely vulnerable to certain types of units that you want to make sure you pin them down. Draw them in a little bit. Most of this is cleaned up, so let's get everyone over here now. It's taken a long time to sort of get these rating your Doomstack videos to a sort of formulaic way of doing it. Because there's been certain Doomstacks that I've sent in before that I've barely used the Doomstack and relied too heavily on the Lord. People obviously complain about that. And then sometimes I'm relying too heavily on the army, and then some people are complaining about that. Oh, you didn't even use the support units. These guys here, they're just providing stats for the army. Obviously this guy here has also got stand or die, but... that would be good, but we want to see how they're performing without him. Obviously a bit of extra melee defense every so often would have helped, but wasn't essential for victory. There's no way they're going to overcome us. For him. Now it's just the obstinacy of the dwarves where these units just refuse to leave the battlefield and will fight to the very last one, which is sort of preventing the reinforcements from coming in. Another thing you can do with this guy, I don't really recommend it in this situation, but what you can do is just pop down Stream of Corruption like this, and it pops down just the passive. It's 1% healing, which, that's still 100 extra health. You know, if you don't want to get him in close. Or if these guys are spread out like they are. Because obviously an overcutted fleshy abundance right now is just not going to hit everyone. But we absolutely don't need to do that. So that's, I'm not going to do it again. So just this one here has reached the point where it can't heal to full in this battle. Yeah, you don't want to be using the dragon breath things on these guys here. It just wouldn't be worth it. Best thing, just charge right into them. Just because the animation takes so long to to do. You just end up taking a ton of damage. Alright, there's the army losses. So all we have to do now is deal with the Slayers. If there's any left. Alright, get everyone together. We'll get in for one last heal. So yeah, these guys performed very well against the dwarfs. 3 full stacks of pretty decent units. Pretty easy to heal them. Only 1 unit is not at max health. So what's going on here? Why have we not... One, what's going... Is it just this one here? Or do they, like, have a Slayer hiding somewhere? Oh, no, here it is. Just didn't see it. They do have Slayers hiding somewhere. Well, they weren't hidden, I just didn't look behind me. So, damage output on them, all pretty good. Really good numbers on that, 20,000 damage. Yeah, absolutely did not need Temerkhan in this fight. Although if we did, this guy here may not have reached this max healing, but it's always possible that one of them just ends up getting focus fired, which is kind of what happened there. So, very strong army, there's no doubt about that. And let's have a look at what these 2 heroes specifically are providing. I know that this one is just in there for the campaign movement range, which is nothing wrong with that. And also, I guess you've got the summons that you can use. So not a useless unit on the battlefield. And they're also not terrible in melee. So, firstly, let's have a look at Temerkhan and look at how he's been leveled up and seeing, should he be the one commanding this or should it just be some other lord? So let's have a look. Mainly looking at his unique line over here. So, that's replenishment rate for non-demonic units, which it's not a non-demonic unit. And because he's got the Nemesis Crown maxed out, that's causing minus 30% replenishment rate. So this is helping to compensate for that. So that's for Plague Ogres. That's faction-wide. Well, reduced upkeep for any units in the army. So really, there's nothing that he's doing here. Oh, speed plus 10% for Lord's Army. That's actually pretty good. Yeah, you want these units to close in quickly. Yeah, it's not all about melee attack and melee defense. Sometimes speed is more important to boost. So yeah, it does make sense to give him this army, for sure. The other option, I guess, is Plague Ogres, which I've got a Doomstack for that to go and have a look at as well. And then looking at... It's actually going down 3 of these lines here. So Filth Incarnate, that's where it is, yeah. So that's providing melee defense and weapon strength. And then it's got all 4 of these. That's providing 5% ward save, weapon strength, and melee attack for them. Cool. Cool, that's what Temerkhan's doing. Then Kasich, what's he doing in here that's boosting? That's all down this way, isn't it? Cavalry, that doesn't count for any of those units. So what is Kasich doing? I'm not entirely sure. Did I just miss it? Let me just... Speed for all units in the army. Okay. That's pretty important. Like I said, you want these guys to get into combat fairly quickly. So yeah, that makes sense. Okay. Even that on his own makes it worth him to be in the army there. Although, it's pretty obvious he boosts Rot Knights a lot more. Which is kind of what I want to put for his army. Definitely want to check out a Rot Knight Doomstack. So, missile resistance for the entire army. Very good for these units because that's their most vulnerable unit. Yeah, providing loads of campaign movement range. That makes sense. That's for mortals. Yeah, so it really just seems like the missile resistance there. Unless I'm missing something. Okay, cool. Alright, well, he's boosted as much as he possibly can. I really don't think you need this particular hero in there, even if it's providing extra stats that I just didn't see. I mean, these guys here were doing just fine, even without him being there, so I'm just not entirely sure. Okay, in terms of rating this, I think it's a 10 out of 10. It is very expensive, but they're going to take in consideration the Sword of Cain, which I think it's maxed out. Not quite maxed out, it's at tier 2. And also the Nemesis Crown. So it's costing more than it otherwise would. His financial situation is not great. So there, these guys were endgame crisis. But it performed at in terms of strength, a 10 out of 10 level. I mean, that is really the worst army for them to go up against. Loads of missile units and anti-large. If this was to go up against something that didn't have many missile units, it would just roll right over it. So let's just say Vampire Counts or Tomb Kings. Doesn't really stand much of a chance against this. So if you're going up against the Sentinel endgame crisis, these guys would be good for that. In terms of ease of recruitment, it would take a very long time to recruit this, which is where I really struggle to give this one a 10 out of 10. Because it's not always just about how strong the unit is, how long will it take you to get it. It's you turn 111 with this. In order to get this, you have to get a tier 5 building, which isn't super quick with Nurgle, even though they got boost to growth. You got to keep in mind that their tier 3 building requires more growth than other factions. And you'd need a fair few of these to do their cycles. It takes a long time to cycle from here all the way around to get, well, then again, you go through this cycle once and you'd get 3 toe draggers. And I guess you could always use rush cycle. Yeah, okay. All right, maybe I'll give it a little bit more credit. Once you reach tier 5, I think getting a bunch of toe dragons actually isn't all that difficult as long as you've got a bunch of infections. So I think that maybe around turn 60 you really should be able to really start pumping out toad dragons as long as your infection rate is fairly high, and he's got that under control. And then ease of use, it's pretty much a 10 out of 10, so very easy to use. Okay, so I'll pretty much give it full marks. Obviously it's not as good as the Thunder Barge Doom stack. I mean, nothing's as good as that one. Or even the Gelt Wizard stack I think would be able to beat this. That being said, we don't do Doom stack versus Doom stack submissions because, for one thing, if you build a Doom stack, you're not going to encounter another army like this, or a Guild Wizard Doom stack, or a Thunder Barge Doom stack. You're just never going to encounter that stuff unless you use console commands or mods. It's just chances of actually having to encounter that in a campaign is basically 0. So don't bother rating for a situation that's just never going to occur. So we can't control what the AI does, but we can control what we do. So yeah, I'm going to give this one top marks, basically 10 out of 10. Super strong. It's actually fairly easy to recruit, especially if you get your stuff in order with your infections, and it's very easy to use, so top marks on that. Yeah, appreciate this guy sending this one in. He basically perfected it. I went in here looking for things to nitpick about, because when you get to this level, and because we've done so many 10 out of 10 Doom stacks, you gotta really try to find any reason to not give it a 10 out of 10, and it was very difficult to not... Do you mind, dwarfs? It's very difficult to not give this one a 10 out of 10, so it gets a 10 out of 10. I mean, it walked out of the battle, and it's only taken a little bit of damage, and I didn't even use Tamarkan, so yeah, good job with this one. Very well done. Anyway, that's the end of this one. Let me know in the comments below what you think of this particular Doom stack. I think this might actually be one of the strongest Nurgle Doom stacks. That being said, the Exalted Hero of Nurgle Doom stack with just like one of these Chaos Sorcerer of Nurgles, I've seen what it can do, and I reckon it could have matched this, just walked out of it basically unscathed. Anyway, that's the end of this one. Appreciate you guys, and I'll see you next time. Later, guys.